Before we start the show, just a word from our sponsor, Undeniable Press. For all your screen printing needs, located in the Corktown district of Detroit, Michigan. If you ever need any t-shirts or any other little promo accessories, posters, or whatnot printed up for you, go to Undeniable Press. They're located, once again, in the Corktown district of Detroit, Michigan, and you can reach them at facebook.com/undeniablepressdetroit. And those same guys who do Undeniable Press also have a clothing line called 20 by 20 Apparel. It's very much wrestling themed, all sorts of nostalgic themes in regards to the history of wrestling. And you can go check out their clothing line at 20x20apparel.com. That's the number 20x, the number 20apparel.com. Now let's start the show.
Fresh is the word.
I'm Jim Duggan, got long wood for plenty hoes. I keep it fresher than fresh, but you already know. You suckers bummy, I'm money, I got a ton of flows. My weed loud like a motherfucking thunder roll. Your shit quiet like you ballin' on a budget though. We see your kicks and we laugh and yellin' what are those. You see me shining like a suit on puffy. You know my grindin' shit is too strong, buddy. That's why the dude call money. I be stuntin' like it's nothing at all. Cause it's nothing to me, it's probably something to y'all. Trying to smoke like me, then come and fuck with your dog. Got a closet full of kicks, you can't cop it tomorrow. And I'm fresher than the freshest, you can tell it's in my essence. Bitch, you see the way I'm rapping, yes I do this shit to death. Until I'm running out of breath, or tell somebody cut a check. But either way you know it's fresh, and either way you know it's fresh. Fresh, we fresh. Fresh, 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 goddammit, we fresh.
Welcome to the Fresh is the Word podcast. I'm your host, Kelly J. Brush Frazier. Thanks for joining us. This week's guest is Grammy-nominated music producer and performer Nicolay. As one half of the music project The Foreign Exchange with Phonte, who you know from the hip-hop group back in the day, Little Brother, and co-founder and co-owner of the record label by the same name, The Foreign Exchange, Nicolay has been able to foster a music career as an independent artist for well over a decade now. During our interview, we talked about what it takes to be an independent artist when the music industry is always changing. We also talked about the unique community that the Foreign Exchange has been able to create, especially with their live shows. And if anybody doesn't know, in the past, I've opened probably about 3 Foreign Exchange shows as the opening DJ in Detroit. Yeah, and we talk about all that because we have history. We also get into the making of Nicolay's newest project. It's called Glaciers. It's a solo project that he did with the North Carolina-based band, the Hot at Nights. And we'll explain who the Hot at Nights are because they're kind of a jazz funk band that a few of the members, I think one still is a part of the touring backup band for the Foreign Exchange. So let's get into my chat with Nicolay.
Really good, dude. It's kind of been just been a whirlwind, man. Like we've been really just working really hard the first 3 months of the year between, just like Phonte's record and then my record. It's just been crazy. It's kind of been like old times in a way, It had been a while that we had like a couple of releases kind of more back to back, and so it's just a feeling of like general exhaustion, but also just the satisfaction that it's finally out, that it's behind you, you know what I'm saying, that you just put something else out there in the ether. So it just exhausted, but really, really, really happy, just in general with the record and just what we're doing with the label right now.
Yeah, for a minute there, you guys were sort of like on the low. Foreign Exchange was kind of on the low, working on stuff. What was sort of the plans during that time? Because it seems like, 2018, you got Phonte's record. Then you just released your record with Hot at Nights, the Glacier album. What was sort of the plan with all of this?
Well, I think we really, truth be told, man, like we really needed to sort of, I think we needed to sort of disappear for a little bit. Like we did, so we did the last Foreign Exchange album, which was the Tales of what the heck the fuck that was. Tales. I'm gonna just call it Tales. Tales from the land of milk and honey. Jesus, I'm finally starting to wake up. But when we had the massive show at the Majestic Theater, like that was just in a lot of ways like sort of that time for FE was a really strong time.
Yeah.
Because we were doing like some really big shows and like really just making a mark that way. But the album kind of didn't really do as well, and so it really kind of I guess with everything going on and also with Phonte being like ridiculously busy with like a myriad of projects, from obviously the Questlove Supreme, podcasts on Pandora to like him being involved with TV shows. That in itself became just sort of like its own thing. And then so with the album not doing super great, we were like, well, let's just for just at least a little while, just kind of maintain a lower profile, and we had been really kind of going strong, dude, really ever since '08, truth be told, so I think for us in general, I think it might have been a moment where just people were getting so familiar with us maybe that like we felt like we needed to disappear again for a little bit. And obviously Phonte had announced his album a while ago initially, and it just kind of didn't really happen due to the general busyness of his schedule. But him and I were essentially just kind of slaving away on each of our solo records over the last couple of months to like half a year, and kind of getting that sort of itch scratched, if you will, before we kind of reform back like Voltron.
During that time, you guys were like kind of staying low. Was there anything that you felt like you needed to reassess? Anything you needed to change about the whole grand scheme of foreign exchange?
Yes, but not necessarily because of that time. More in general, like we've just been over the last few years, we have been really needing to, we've had to really kind of figure out all these major developments in the music business and how that works out for us specifically, from seeing a CD slowly disappearing to now downloads kind of being on the way out. The whole streaming model and everything. Truth be told, we have to kind of readapt like pretty much every couple of years, man, because the changes are so rapid that as a music company, where our primary product obviously is the content, it seems like almost every month, like something major shifts. And all of those shifts in themselves affect, obviously our income directly because we're independent, so that's been just in general, just on the business level, kind of something that we honestly have to reevaluate sort of like every year. It's like, hey, what have we been doing, and is this still the smartest way to do it? And so even you'll see some sort of outcome of that is kind of just how we've recently been releasing the albums, where we go digital first, and then we follow it up with a physical release later, is just kind of our response to, it's our adaptation, if you will, to the changing landscape where, you just notice that people have less and less attention for new things. So, yeah, we have to kind of figure that out, like, as we go,
Yeah, you've been sort of a part of this sort of independent music industry thing since you first started putting out records, and I've known you since those early years, through when I was still doing the Renaissance Soul website. I know you since before you were putting out records. What was sort of like your idea, your reasoning about sort of just going independent, from the get-go? Did you think that you'd still be doing it independent all these years later?
Yeah, I think I knew from early on that. Let me put it this way. I think with us, you a lot of people ask us like, how successful is this? How successful is that? How successful are you? And truth be told, for myself as well as for Phonte, I think because of our very humble beginnings, our main focus has always been just to make music, and the fact that that somehow just kind of, that we were able to turn it into something that didn't lose money, because I mean we're not by any means rich, but we definitely have no complaints. I think all of that for us just kind of solidifies the fact that this is like, that truly for us is what we always wanted. We were guys that we just loved music. We were music fans, and we just couldn't think of anything better to do like all day long. And so that is still true to this day. I think that we're very much in it for the music, and that essentially also means that you can't allow to let yourself be bent by any kind of wind. So that automatically in our case meant that any type of other label situation is kind of like, almost you can't really even imagine it, because we would never get the creative freedom that we want, or even the financial freedom. We really like making our own moves, and deciding where we go without somebody telling us like why it may be a bad idea or why it may be a good idea. So I think that independence, man, that freedom, I think once you've sort of tasted that, it's very hard, I think, to give that up. And especially for us, we don't really make the type of music where I can see this sort of being like something that really kind of would blow up on a major level, because it's just a little bit too edgy for it. So we've never really even had that sort of motivation, to really kind of look in that direction. If anything, we just like to kind of sort of independently push this as far as we go.
From your perspective, for anybody out there that was thinking about going an independent route, not even just in music, anything creative, what sort of actionable items do you feel like people should learn to be able to have somewhat of a successful career in doing what they do creative, but on an independent level like you do?
That's a very great question. I mean, I think it goes really to back to the basics, in the sense that like somebody, like the hardest worker is always going to win. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't matter if it's the guy in McDonald's like frying the patties, or if it's a musician who is new to the game trying to build a name up for themselves. The hardest worker is going to win. So the people that are going to really still be able to kind of make a play for this are people that are hugely social media savvy, Instagram, Twitter, uh, Snapchat, whatever is the newest thing of the newest times. Like people that are incredibly savvy, not just with their music, but with social media, with video, with visuals, with Facebook live streams. That's honestly what it's going to take for new people, I think, at this point, whether it's music or hell, writing, or anything that you'd want to kind of put out there. You're fighting for attention with so many different things across the spectrum, whether it's mainstream media like television, or whether it's independent media, that honestly, the person that is going to persevere is the person that outworks everybody else. It's just a matter of sheer work ethic. Talent, yes, talent is a big deal. If you don't have talent, like, you probably shouldn't even really start doing any of this stuff. But ultimately, talent is not going to help you across the finish line. Like, as ironic as that sounds, the work ethic is like 75% of the equation. 20% is luck, and like 5% is talent.
When you're a creative, but you're also pretty much your own boss, what sort of inner accountability do you need to be able to sort of persevere through all the obstacles?
I would say the number one rule that Phonte and myself have kind of just maintained for ourselves is to never do any vanity projects. Like, never indulge ourselves in stuff that is just over the top. Like, you will not see, we don't have fancy business cards. We don't have like anything that you see from us, whether it's CDs or vinyl or anything, you would never see us sort of like flex beyond our means. And I think that's just a really important thing is like, if you want to be successful right now as a musician, like, yes, man, like that album might be dope in your mind. And yes, you may want to press like 5,000 copies. You know what I'm saying? But like, truth be told, it's much more about knowing your worth, you know what I'm saying, and knowing how to scale into that. And it's again, these are conversations that I have a lot of times, and it like most of these things, there's not really one good solid answer. Like I said earlier, luck is a pretty big part of it, and if you would tell my story to anybody, you'd have to acknowledge the fact that there was a little bit of luck involved, you know what I mean? Or you could call it divine intervention or coincidence or fate. I mean, it's kind of whatever you believe in, but I'm not going to say that you don't need a little bit of that, you know?
Let's talk about that idea of luck. Is there anything that sticks out in your mind, some events, some moments in time that you would point to, hey, that was very lucky, and it kind of pointed your career in a whole other direction?
Yeah, I mean, there have been several. I think the very first moment that I would sort of like pinpoint as like a sort of a direct. This was well before you would call anything a career, but a direct sort of moment. If you had to draw out a timeline of Nicolay and how he got to where he got, like the very first dot out, outside of me being born and shit, is like I started going to school. Well, I started going to university, in Amsterdam when I reached about that age, and obviously I didn't know what the fuck I was going to do, so I applied for musicology. Seeing as though I wanted to do something in music, I might as well do that, but it quickly turned out that like studying musicology at a university is about as exciting as watching fucking grass grow. It's just like there's a bunch of old guys talking about Bach and just old shit and classical shit, and I love all of that. Like, don't get me wrong, like I'm a big head when it comes to classical music, but there was like zero room for stuff like jazz or even something like Frank Zappa or just stuff that was kind of a little more just beyond all that. So it was just kind of a drag, honestly. But I met this dude there who was one of my fellow students, and he was a guitar player. And like he was like a ridiculous guitar player. Like, and I'm really not a hyper, just like one to hype shit up. But this guy it's like a monster, like a very much like an incredible guitar player, electric guitar player. Really good, like rock soloing dude, but also just strong funk chops. And I met him, and I fucked with him, and so it was kind of cool. We hung out, and he invited me at some point to audition for his band, and he knew, I played bass. That was kind of my thing back then. I played bass, and their bass player had just left. Because, like, honestly, their group was terrible. Like, group was really bad. Like, this is not like a glamour story per se. Group was really bad, and the bass player had left because he was really too good for the group. And so he was like, "Fuck this shit. I'm finding something better." And everybody's still friends to this day, so it's all good. But that's just kind of what it was. He was like, "Look, this is not really doing it for me." And so he got me to audition, and like they gave me the job. Like I became the bass player for this funk band, and that kind of like looking back now, obviously that was a really big moment for me when I started playing with people and doing shows at some point, and the various kind of early stages of trying to record, and so this was like mid-90s, so that was definitely a moment where you can say like that was truly just one of those moments. And obviously a little while later, coming across Phonte was an equally, if not more so, kind of turnaround moment that obviously turned my whole fucking life like upside down, like literally, whether it's where I am like geographically at this point, or what I'm doing, or like all of that changed when I met him, obviously.
Yeah, your musical relationship that you made with Phonte also coincides with this change you made from moving from Amsterdam to the States. What was sort of your what was going on during that time? How were you able to make that transition geographically successfully?
Man, it was a big deal. It was a very it was a big deal. So basically what happened was, Connected did really good, and so that sort of kind of woke up like a bunch of sleeping dogs, and BBE, which was the label that released Connected. They kind of saw like this could be. They had a lot of foresight. Like looking back, I think we have to really give BBE the props, if anything, that they just really knew that shit the minute they saw it with not only with us, but in general with a bunch of kind of more cutting edge shit like that in those years. They
Right.
knew what it was, so they wanted me to do some solo records and stuff, and so I signed with them to do the Here album. This is like in '06, something like that, and simultaneously they were like, look, man, like, this shit is going well, and you just kind of keep traveling back and forth. Like, we can sponsor you for a visa for extraordinary ability, which is ironically the same visa that Melania Trump came into the country on. Which that extraordinary ability remains to be located, but it's the exact same. It's literally the exact same category. It's the E visa, and it's for scientists and otherwise people that have made their mark in their field, and you have to prove that. You have to, like, when you apply for a visa, gosh, man, I think we submitted like hundreds of pages of reviews of my stuff, and just in general people's letters of support. You have to get like a letter from the American Federation of Musicians, kind of the union, the musicians union, declaring that you're not coming here and that you will not be taking somebody else's job, that what you're doing is essentially unique and nobody else can do that, because that's another requirement. That's why I get real pissed off, man, when people talk about immigration, and especially now, like, people don't know shit about shit. So, like, I get really, really, really fussy, especially when the right be claiming stuff that is just straight up not true. You know what I'm saying? Like, they'll be very free about talking about, the chain immigration, like they bringing in 20 people. Like, I can't bring in 20 people. Like, I can bring in, like, my mom and pops, like, tops, dude. That is it. Like, I can't bring in my brother or my nephew or my cousin. Like, that's just a myth, you know what I'm saying? They like to just tell you that to be, to scare people into thinking that. But that's
Right.
just, as an immigrant myself, that's just inherently not true. And another thing is that, like, I definitely had to bend over backwards to prove, this and this and that. And even, obviously they check your record and stuff, and you go to the embassy and you talk to a damn FBI agent, and you're under oath, in that interview. And if you say something stupid, like, you might go to jail, so it's not necessarily a joyride, you know what I'm saying? And that's just me being a rich white European. I'm not even talking about being a refugee from Syria, you know what I'm saying? I'm talking about a privileged white man from a rich European country. So I came in, hey, let's get it not twisted, but it requires a lot, and it worked out. And so I came here in 2006 in the summer, and man, I think I didn't really even fully know what I was doing, truth be told. But I instantly started, traveling. Like, I remember hitting Detroit, like, for instance, that year. I know you were there.
Yeah, I've been
I think
around.
this was the one with Daz. I don't remember where it was, but like, yeah, I just started traveling right away, and I really wanted to sort of take advantage of finally being here physically and being able to do shows, So I kind of started just straight up into like this rhythm that, truth be told, like, we haven't really stopped.
Yeah, it's been good times, man. Ever since, you guys have every time you guys do a big foreign exchange show, you've been booking me as the the opening DJ, and those have been some of those have been some of my funnest gigs I've ever had.
Yeah, man. I think, well, I mean, obviously you're a great DJ, and I mean, I'm saying that completely without blowing smoke, because I could care less about blowing smoke, as you know. But like, you know, like our fans that like, but people that have never seen a foreign exchange show, like they don't appreciate like how great our fans are. Like, yes, we are great. Like, we're really fucking great. But like our fans, man, like I'm willing to bet that our fans are some of the best people to have at a show in a venue, whether it's just good vibes or appreciation of music or just people looking their best or whatever. It's just like, it's a whole thing, you know? And so what I love about like our shows is like we, you know, and we get a little bit of flack for this, but we don't like to have openers like other bands, you know, because really 9 out of 10 times, man, the opener sucks. And then you have to just change over the equipment, and then your sound is ass. So you have just sound checked for 2 hours and like for really no purpose. So we quickly learned like look, we don't need to do that shit because we're gonna be looking like funky out there, you know. And so we kind of came up with the concept of the DJ to open and close because it's kind of the perfect way of sort of setting things up, you know. It's a dance essentially, you know what I'm saying? And the right DJ, and so that's like you in Detroit, and I mean we have our fixed DJ in every city, like real talk, you know. You are a Detroit dude, and we got really somebody in every city that sort of understands like what we're about, what our fans like, and that can also kind of push it a little bit, you know. Just a DJ, I feel like, has at least partly a responsibility to push things a little bit and to put 1 or 2 records on there that, you know, might be a little bit new or edgy or otherwise. Like, that's really just, but it's always a great vibe, you know. It's always like, and every Detroit show, man, like from just the Magic Stick back in the day to like now the last time the Majestic Theater proper, like it's just been sort of like a slow growth where every year or every 2 years you see there's more people, you know what I'm saying? And that's just been, we just see that across the states, man. And so like, I'm just really proud of building that up. Like when you come to a FE show, it's just a fucking party, man, from the first minute, because like we got a DJ there that's going to just warm things up to kind of like that cooking point where it's just like, ooh. And that's when we hit the stage, and like, I mean, it's a rap. Like, it's just a rap. I remember even last show when you were playing, like I distinctly remember like the last 2 or 3 records before we came on, like were relatively like pumpy, like energy records, and it's just like, yeah, man, like you can just feel people getting ready. You just feel that buzz in the crowd, like, right. It's just, I mean, I live for that, you know. And so, yeah, that's really kind of where the DJ thing came from. It just fits so well.
No, 100%. It was just the crowds that come to a foreign exchange show are just so cool. Everybody just like they're open to just listening to some cool music, and they want to hear different shit, you know. They don't want to just hear the same old stuff that's on the radio or whatever. You know, they're like, I'll play just some new shit, some stuff that no one's ever heard yet, or whatever. And people will come up, yo, what was that you just played? Blah, 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 you know. And I'm like, yeah, this is it, you know. And it's super cool, man. And just the vibe is just always like, yeah, I remember at that last show, like, I think towards the end, I just did like a whole little mini, like, segment of like Chicago footwork. And like, and like everybody was like loving it. I was like, oh, all right, cool, sweet, you know. So
yeah, and that's a perfect. I mean, again, like, and it's very important that it's the right DJ. Like, I cannot stress it enough. We've had guys that come out there and play like 60 minutes of like Black Moon and shit like that, and you know, that just means like they might be a good DJ in that vocabulary, but they clearly like cannot read just what is going on, you know, because like, yes, hip hop is very much like a part of that sort of bouillabaisse that you can grab from, but you're not really, it's not like an underground sort of affair, you know what I'm saying? And there's going to be a lot of women in the house. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And like, so it's imperative that a DJ kind of knows, like, look, like this can definitely kind of get started from a certain perspective, but at some point, the energy is going to have to go up. And that's why the people that have been with us, like you, like I know that you've done the last, like, what, 3 or 4 shows?
Yeah, last 3, yeah.
You know, like I know that, you know, so it's, again, once you have a winning formula, man, like, don't change the winning team, you know?
Yeah, and what's cool is, like, each of those 3 times, like, I played different sets because it was just, like, there is, like, this openness with, you know, with the crowd there that I can do different things each time.
Yeah, and I mean, I know for a fact, and I'm not just saying this, but, like, I know for a fact that we have always had, like, somebody say something about you, like, being dope. Like, it's always been, like, some people will be tweeting, or, like, you can always just tell. And trust me, like, once we ask you the second time, like, you know at that point, like, oh, okay. They like what I'm doing. Like, if we never ask you back, like, that's kind of the review right there. You know, that's like, oh, okay, well, maybe not.
Cool. Yeah. So you have a new album that you just released. It's called Glaciers. You did it with the Hot at Nights. Can I explain what this album is and who exactly the Hot at Nights are?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Hot at Nights are essentially a jazz trio from North Carolina, and the connection, the link is that 2 of them play, or, like, at this point 1, but 2 of them used to play in the Foreign Exchange backing band. So it's guys that I've played with for years now, and I've played with them off and on together for projects that I've released in the past. And I really had, like, an itch to scratch when it came to doing a record that kind of follows in the footsteps of some of the stuff that I do on the City Lights records, but, like, instead of kind of taking the electronic approach, the dancey approach, to really kind of more go into that sort of fusion direction of a live group with a drummer and, like, you know, just a saxophone and in this case a guitarist, bass player. And so man, it's just a record that I hate it when artists say, like, this is the record that I was born to make, because I know it's a crock of fucking bullshit, like, 90% of the time. But, like, really, this is the record that, like, I wasn't necessarily born to make, because I can't judge this shit, but this is really one that I've wanted to make now for at least 10 years. The concept has been in my mind for around 10 years, and the last 5 years was specifically spent, like, off and on recording and writing this shit. But it was just something where I really wanted to kind of do sort of my take on the Return to Forevers and the Weather Reports and the Steve Miller bands and you know, some stuff like that, but kind of keep it Nicolay, though, you know, not necessarily just doing straight up throwback stuff, but more just kind of taking all of that and combining it and turning it out. And this record, I mean, it's, you know, it's hard to kind of gauge. Like, I'm as proud of this as I've not been in a long time, just because it took so long. You know, I've been tinkering on this stuff longer than I've done on most albums I've released in the past. Like, I'll tell you, every freaking note, like every hi-hat, anything that you would hear has been debated, you know, turned around, like alternative takes have been tried. Like, literally, it's very different from what you normally hear from us, which has a little bit more kind of, like, I think, edge to it. With this, we really kind of wanted to drop sort of a record that was, like, sort of ready-made to be appreciated by, you know, a wider audience, if you will. So yeah, man, it's kind of like it's an instrumental project. You know, it's instrumental music. It's jazz influence. I wouldn't call it jazz proper, because it really isn't. You know, there's not, like, a ton of notes per se, like, all the time. It's much more kind of vibe heavy record. It's kind of a trippy record, very sort of 60s and 70s influenced, and you know, it's just really another sort of different, I guess, flavor that I like to put out there, you know, alongside some of the other records.
What finally came together with this project to be in like where you were able to finally finish it and put it out just now?
So the major sort of deal that happened with this record was that we lost like 90% of it in a hard drive crash
Oh,
in early 2015, and now everybody's gonna be all like, but obviously Nicolay was such a smart motherfucker, had like backups, and that was not necessarily the case. Uh, so like, I mean, long story short, man, like we were really close to getting there, and then we had that enormous setback, and it for a while it was just like, look, why would we even try again? Because that everybody that's had a hard disk failure, whether it's your fucking MP3s or your porn or whatever it fucking is, like this shit sucks, and if that shit is your own music, I'll tell you, it goddamn sucks like 10 times more, and I mean, I went through all the motions, man. I sent the drive to a company that specializes in data rescue, and they hit me back right away. They were like, "Man, this joint is fucked."
damn.
It was like 100% like unrecoverable. So I don't know, man. That can be a moment that can either break you or make you. You know what I mean? Like depending on how you take that could be the shit that finishes you, or that can be sort of the thing that you said like, fuck no, like I'm a just do that shit after all. And what ended up happening, is that like, okay, I was like, okay, the only thing that could make sense just spiritually to me is if I was somehow meant to do an even better job at it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so that's kind of like how I just took it, as though it just wasn't really strong enough. And so we really started essentially from the ground back up, from the ashes of what was left, and had to really redo most of it. And that in itself, obviously took a while. So all in all, man, like it's just a record where just even it being out into the world itself, outside of what people think or not, is just a victory of just, I guess, pushing through when the shit hits the fan,
Do you think this record is better than what you originally recorded?
Yeah, much better, much better. So that's why I'm saying like that's. And I'm not really like I'm not that sort of like floaty dude. Like I'm very. I wouldn't say that I'm even that spiritual as a person. I'm fairly earthy. But this is something where I did sort of feel like, wow, what if this was just the universe telling me that the shit wasn't dope? Who knows?
Right. I like to think about things like that. If something like that happens, I feel like there's another reasoning. There's another avenue I'm supposed to go down. There's something something else I'm supposed to be doing.
Has to be. Because the alternative is too damn depressing.
Definitely.
Like, which is just like, oh well, fuck you, you're fucked. And that I'm definitely like a skeptical person, probably even a sarcastic person, but that would be too grim even for me, So yeah, I took it ultimately as like, okay, that just means like we're gonna have to redo it, and that normally means that it turns out better. There have been instances in the past where you have to redo something and you're just kind of chasing that thing and you just never really quite capture it again. But honestly, this got fucked up to such a point where like we had to do everything all over, you know what I'm saying? We didn't even necessarily have references. Like we had like mixes of stuff that we had been working on, but it was in such stages that it was far from a complete album when it happened, So we didn't really even have that much of a reference of like what we were trying to do. So it ultimately became, I think, much stronger.
When it comes to, thinking back about your life and career, even if someone who doesn't know who you are, doesn't even listen to your music, is listening to this interview, What is it about your life and your story do you think, people can relate to? What are some actionable items about your life and career do you think people can apply to their own lives?
Well, I'd like to think that the main thing that I sort of always kind of the gospel that I really preach is that anything you want to have happen, you have to make it happen yourself. And that sounds kind of easier than it is, and that's probably true. It's a little bit of a cliche, but it's true for the most part, is that anything that you want to see happen, you have to make for yourself. There's not going to be anybody along your way that is going to ring your doorbell one morning and be like, hey man, I recognize your talent and I am going to take you to the top. And that let me put it this way, that happens if you're Rihanna, but that doesn't happen if you're not Rihanna. So my first thing is always, man, like anything that you think of, that you dream of, that you sort of visualize in your in your head, in your dreams, whatnot, build it. Just do it. Just do it yourself. Like, don't ask for anybody else to do it for you. Don't wait because it's like, I don't have the right equipment. I don't have that newest like plug-in, so my shit sounds whack. Like all of those, that's just all excuses, obviously. Like at this point, we've heard people make records for Kendrick Lamar on damn iPhones and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's just really kind of coming back to even what we sort of began the discussion about, is that the person that's going to win is the person that's going to outwork you. It's kind of the same thing, man. Like, you just have to build your own world. If you want to be a producer, like, produce the music that you feel the world needs to hear. If you're a producer but you don't get like any play, or you can't find anybody to rap, drop an instrumental project. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't look at anything as like a something that could potentially hold you back, but look at it as, how can I just make moves? And that just ultimately starts by plotting out your own course and making your own moves, and anything that you want to see happen, whether it's making an album or writing a book or just, anything, like, until you start doing it, it's not going to happen. And then there's going to be people that say like, well, yeah, I can write a book, but then I have a book, then what? Yes, sure. But like, hey, put it out. Self-publish that shit. It really is becoming a world where the people that are sort of like dominating the media landscape in terms of the arts are all going to be people that would do it whether they made $5 million or $5. You know what I'm saying? Like there's people that are doing this shit that you just know, like, that it's they breathe it, they live it, they bleed it, they eat it, they sleep it, they breathe it, and they would be doing it for $5, for $500, for $5 million. Like, it's just in their blood. And I think those are all things to consider. I think the first question you got to probably ask yourself is like, do I got what it takes? Like, how honest are you about how good your shit is? Like, I get like hit up by a lot of people that are like, yo man, I want to blow your mind with this next thing I got. And it's just like, man, like 9 out of 10 times, man, minds are not blown. Like, no minds were blown during the making of this video. Right. And it's just like, people look at it, I feel like sometimes in too basic of ways, man. But like, again, it goes back to it. If you want to be what you want to be, you have to build it. If you want to be signed to a label, pretty sure you're going to have to sign your fucking self to your own damn label. Why not? We did it.
Definitely. Great advice. Each time I do an interview for the podcast, I like to close out the interview with the same question. And I did send it to you in advance. And the question is, who is somebody that's been a part of your life or career that I could interview, who I could realistically interview, that would have some great stories?
Yeah, you definitely sent me that in advance, and I didn't really have to think long, man. I mean, realistically, it being a keyword here, I'd say my partner Phonte, like you could realistically interview him, as in like that would be a realistic possibility,
Yeah.
and I think more than anything, more than anybody else, I think he would be able to. He might be able to tell you more about me than I would even, just because. I mean, it's crazy. Like we've been, we really are two different people, yet we are totally the same. It's a continuous sort of fascination, like how people that grew up on different sides of the ocean, can be so the same. Like we grew up, literally 100%. Everything was different. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't like, even to this day, like something that will come up that's like hella funny to people here. It's like I came up listening and watching completely different like TV and radio. You know what I'm saying? So, like, every now and then there'll be a reference to a movie or a TV that y'all would have all been fucking beaten over the head with growing up. And I'm like, what is that shit? And so that alone leads to like hilarity. Like, I'm just this sort of like literally kind of coming fresh off the boat in a way. But then random things I'll totally have seen and nobody understands that shit. Like I'll be like super like hella expert on Knight Rider episodes, and they're like, what is that? And so that's in itself really funny. Phonte and I, we're just really just a very interesting and beautiful partnership that kind of, again, we can call it coincidence or we can call it meant to be. I think with me and Phonte, it really was like a meant to be situation, as much as I can call it, because it just how far we've come together. I think had Connected sort of been like the one and only thing, and you're just like, okay, that was a fantastic album, but it was a one time only thing. But it was really the start of just a relationship where, I mean, I'll just be on a just a very real practical level. Like, just money alone can fuck up so much shit, dude. Like, money has fucked up many a fucking great music group or
Yeah.
duo or what you want to call it. You know what I'm saying? And for us to like trust each other the way we do and kind of work together on everything. And I mean, we're like so transparent with each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's just the way to do it. Like we this is a 50-50 thing, what I'm saying? Like, literally, what I'm saying? And so that's just like, that in itself is a blessing, man, that like me and this cat have been working together, making music, like building a company, you know what I mean? Like having people work for us, like you name it. And in all this time, we haven't had a single sort of moment where either one of us was looking at the other on some like, yo, what the fuck, And I think that's a real testament to like what we are, man. That like we made that shit work while being two very completely different yet the same people. So I think like try to interview Phonte and ask him like the juicy part. He's been to my mama's house. Like Phonte knows, like Fonte's got receipts, man. Like Phonte has like several photos of photos that are in my mama's house of me at various ages and at various stages of of uncoolness over the years.
Of
So, like,
awkwardness.
oh, bruh. Like, I'll tell you, like, he was fucking dying laughing when he saw some of that shit. So he would definitely be the dude, man. Like, and I know, I think he'd talk to you. I have no reason to believe not to. So that would be, on a realistic tip, like, definitely Phonte.
Great, great, great. Yeah, thanks for your time, man. Definitely always good to talk with you. Where can people find out about foreign exchange and your music and everything online?
All right, so definitely anything that we do, we all got it under the umbrella of the foreign exchange music, which is the foreignexchangemusic.com. That's kind of the portal to everything else. Like, we got everybody's music up on Spotify and Apple Music and iTunes and all that good stuff. We're up on Facebook, Twitter. Really, we're literally kind of everywhere. So people can Find us pretty much all over, and I hope that they check out the new album. It's something that I'm very proud of. I really hope to come to Detroit with the guys and just come and bring the show, the Glaciers show, to Detroit, because that again, like, me and Detroit have had a long relationship. At this point, I mean, Detroit was one of my first shows. Was that show in '06? Like, there were a couple of cities that were really early on to the early riders of the Nicolay train, like Detroit, Chicago, Atlanta, like those, like DC. Those are areas where, like, early on, like, they embraced me. So I'm really hoping to come to Detroit and play the record live. So we'll keep you posted. I'm pretty sure you'll be DJing if that happens. So.
Dude, keep me posted. I would love to.
Yeah, man, I will definitely keep you posted. I mean, we're kind of eyeing. This is going to be after the summer, because we're kind of setting things up the right way. You know what I'm saying? But I'm definitely keeping you in the loop for sure.
All right, great, man. It's been good talking with you, man.
Kelly, it's always a pleasure, man. I appreciate you reaching out and keep fighting the good fight, man.
All right, thanks, man. You have a good day.
All right, you do the same, brother.
So that was my interview with Nicolay. Great dude. We have long history. Go ahead and pick up that new album, Glaciers, via the Foreign Exchange. And also check out the Foreign Exchange website. There's a lot of good music on there from various projects. You won't be disappointed. And if you ever get a chance to check out the Foreign Exchange live on tour, definitely go check them out. Nicolay does his own solo tours every once in a while. Check them out. Just keep your eyes peeled. It's always a good time. Now, this week's Fresh is the Word pick of the week comes from the UK-based drum and bass duo Spectra Soul. They have a new release that they just dropped on their own label, Ischat Music. It's a couple remixes from their recent full-length album, How We Live. The first remix on there is for the track Burst, and it's remixed by longtime drum and bass mainstay Caliber. It's awesome. Awesome remix. And then Spectra Soul themselves give their track Say What a bit of a different vibe this time around. So, go ahead and check out that new release from them. You can check out their Bandcamp at spectrasoul.bandcamp.com, or you can check them out at on SoundCloud at Spectra Soul. All this stuff will be, in the show notes at freshasthepodcast.com. So you can give a listen to the new single, the remixes from the album right there on the page. And if you can, support the brothers. It'd be cool. Definitely a cool release that definitely caught my ear once it got into my inbox. So cool. Thank you for listening to Fresh is the Word this week. Just a reminder on how you can support the podcast, spread the word. You can always go to freshasthepodcast.com and just share any links that you see on the website on any of your social media. You can also subscribe to Fresh is the Word at iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Mixcloud, SoundCloud, Google Play, TuneIn. I'll just search Fresh is the Word and it'll come up. If you go to iTunes or Apple Podcasts, whatever they call it, give Fresh is the Word a good review, 5 stars. If I see any reviews pop up, I'll definitely read them on the show. If you want to follow me online, I'm at Twitter and Instagram at Kelly Omega Fresh. On Facebook at facebook.com/kfresh, and on Mixcloud at mixcloud.com/rensoul. And the Fresh is the Word social media accounts are: Twitter is at FITW Podcast, Instagram is at Fresh is the Word Podcast, Facebook is facebook.com/Fresh is the Podcast, and on SoundCloud it's soundcloud.com/Fresh is the Word Podcast. Well, great. That's it for the show this week. Definitely thanks for listening, like always. Goodbye and good night.
Fresh is the word.